I'm going to show you a little bit about the common man in the early 14th century. So far you've seen how rich men armed themselves for what they wear, but of course they were a very small part of our population. It's the common men, the ordinary folk of Scotland, who built up most of the army. Because we didn't have that many knights, many gentlemen, we had to rely on ordinary spearmen. Now, I'm sure you all know what a spear is. It's a very long pointy stick that can be very dangerous in the right hand. But on its own, it's not very effective. So what we developed was just like other nations, like Flanders and like Switzerland, we developed the technique of putting masses of men together and using lots of these at once. I'm sure you've all seen Braveheart, and you'll be aware of the use of the spear and the pike. It's slightly more practiced than that, slightly more technical than that, and it does rely on a body of men working together. So Scots soldiers used to meet regularly at Wappenshaw. These were days when the knights and clans were told to muster all the men of the land. A, to prove they all had the basic equipment, padded garments, spear, helmet, but also to get them to work together and to be used to seeing each other in a line of battle. Remember, when the king called us out, every able-bodied man between the ages of 16 and 60 must take the field, assuming you had at least 2 Scots pounds worth of property or livestock. That didn't mean many. But if you had that, you had to equip yourself. The rest could stand at the back and cheer, but you still had to be there. So for this process to take place, local sergeants would be enacted by the sheriff to train the men on those given days. That would happen roughly about every 3 months most of the time, unless the noble class was bored and couldn't be bothered. The men didn't get paid for these days, it was their feudal duty. So what we have here today, my lords, are the 2 men who have been dictated by the king to call out the levy and have them trained. First, we'll do with this finish. Thousands of communities across Scotland who, when brought together for the National Army, would make a huge mob of men. So they had to train to do the same thing, although they might not see the rest of the army. So common commands were invented, common techniques were used, and it was the sheriff's job to ensure that somebody like me, a local sergeant, was told about those. That's where their responsibility stopped, and mine took off. My job is to knock these men into some sort of shape. Well, they do know their job because they've been turned out before. Most of the commands are in old Lowland Scots. So, if you don't recognise some of the terms, we will explain them. The first one is very easy. Grundas. Sounds like ground, and that's what it means. So, Grundas, they're all there, parked up. Well, they look a fine body of men. No? Well, they're not convinced yet. So it's okay, they can stand. We know that one. Now, can you carry your spears? Man in your spears? You notice all the men do the same thing. So they pick them up and they hold them at the bottom, pull them close into their chest and armpit. If you've got a 10 to 16 foot stick and you're only allowed one hand to hold it, it sort of becomes very commonsensical very quickly that you've got to hold it and wrap your arm around it and hold the bottom. So we know they can carry the spear and move. Now venga, sit! Why are they grunting? Unlike the modern army, nobody calls out left and right, and unlike the modern army, perhaps like the modern army, very few of them know which their left and right is. So by being taught to cough, moan or grunt every time the left foot is moved, men very quickly learn to stay in a form of step. There is no form of marching, but it's the closest you get in medieval Scotland. So we know they can move a little bit. Not very good if we're going to fight. So we need to get those points facing somebody, and not me, hopefully. So the next command is called Adwedia. Now that comes from an old Northumbrian English term to point at someone. And it's exactly the same. So Adwedia. Now notice not all men hold the spear in the same position. The front rank hold theirs at arm's length. The second rank are at chest height. This is a very small group of men. Scheltrum might be 16 ranks deep. The third rank will be at head height. The fourth rank, this gets tiring now, with pointing up and down. And the fifth rank will be pointing to the air. So at this point we know that at least they can point their weapons at you. But it's not very offensive, is it? Well, I think they're offensive, but you might not. So, and they fight. Well, you can notice this, not one man can do anything on his own here. So, Master Fry, would you try and fight, please? Pretty useless on his own. Not going to have much of that. There a gap. They squeeze together. Now, imagine if you will another 1,000 men going on with this. And then there's one. Swing! Oh, come on. Swing! A little louder this time. Swing! Oh, for heaven's sake. You don't like me. Swing! That's better. And again, louder. Swing! You get a bit more aggressive now. It takes them a while. Now that's all well and good, isn't it? They can do that. But what happens if the enemy attacks from behind? Mind your spares. Left to me. And ready. There we go. Look. Now, you'll notice now, those of you can see, we'll do it back the other way in a moment, that the front rank is almost squatting onto the floor. Why do you think that is? Very simple. Mind your spares. Left to me. As with here. Up. How many people here play rugby? Okay. If you don't play rugby, I'll explain. I had an old rugby coach who used to tell me, tackle below the waist, not above it. A man's weight is carried above the waist. So if me, a big bruiser, comes charging in against poor Patrick, who's half my weight, I get him and he squats lower, and then drives his shoulder up into my body and throws me back. Very hard to knock him off balance. He's lower. My centre of gravity is up here. So when I attack him, all he needs to do is lock up on his back foot and then push his shoulder into my stomach or chest. Once I pass the point, he's got no way of defending himself except shoving me out of the way. The other point of this is, they're all locked together now in a block. It's like hitting a brick. Lots of men, bearing the weight, should be able to stop even a horse. Yes, a lot of them will die, we don't care. That's their job. But by locking up tight, if I come in and I weigh 17 stone, come on! Weak. Lock up! You ready? That's better. Push! Boom! And again! Boom! Fair enough. That's better. So, they're learning, my lord. Down your spares. Left to me. Rabenga. Stand. Rabenga.